video we see about wound construction in SICS. When come to surgical limbus anatomy, this is blue zone and this is white zone. Between the blue zone and white zone is the mid-limbal line. Anterior one is anterior limbal border, posterior one is posterior limbal border. So here this is corneal portion, this is blue zone. Below the blue zone is white zone and this is sclera proper. Scleral incision, external scleral incision constructed by blade or surgical knife. In practical terms, one can think about the globe as double wall structure, at least in the vicinity of the wound. For the purpose of cataract incision, one wall is the roof of the tunnel and one is floor of the tunnel. If these two layers acting in a predictable manner when pressure applied from within during deformation of anterior chamber, that result in closure of the wound. So during the initiation of incision, blade has to be kept as perpendicularly as possible to the scleral surface. Angled or slanted incision will cause more separation of lips and consequent wound gapping. So blade has to be perpendicular to the scleral surface. Here, this is the scleral incision. Next is size. Size of the incision on the sclera is titrated to the nucleus grading. So considering the average equatorial diameter of adult lens as 9 mm and scleral extensibility of 0.5 to 1 mm, nucleus of any size can be promptly delivered through the external incision. So length of the incision, which is the distance between the two ends but not along the curvature. So this is length of the incision. 5 to 6 mm for cortical cataract and 7 to 8 mm for nuclear sclerotic grade 4 cataract. Shape. So arc length is measured along the line of incision. Chord length is measured from the point of initiation to the point of ending of incision. So end to end is chord length. Various incision configurations which are used are smile and straight incision. So smile, when the incision is made parallel to the limbus, the inferior edge of the incision may fall back, which flattens the cornea in this meridian. So if the incision is made at 12 o'clock, this incision flattens the vertical meridian of the cornea, causing against the rule astigmatism. So this is smile incision. Straight incision. When the incision is fashioned straight, there are no chance of inferior edge falling back. Whatever the astigmatism is produced by straight incision is because of instability of central portion of wound, which is much less than the smile incision. So this is straight incision. Location. Usually convex part of the frown incision is along the posterior limbal line. This corresponds to about 1.5 mm from the conjunctival insertion. So 1.5 to 2 mm from the limbus, we have to place the incision. So incision depth. Ideal depth should be half to 3/4 of the scleral thickness, and also it should be uniformly deep along its length. If incision is less than 50% of the thickness, it will cause thin roof or buttonholing. 50 to 75% is optimal. More than 75 will cause deeper plane and premature entry. 100% incision cause scleral disinsertion. Next is sclerocorneal tunnel. So incision is swept with the tip of the crescent blade beveled up. This is done so that incision along its entire length is smooth, non-ragged and of uniform depth. In the subsequent sweeps, heel of the blade is slowly lowered such that it rests on the scleral surface. If the heel of the blade is very low from the beginning, there is possibility of superficial planar buttonholing. If the heel of the blade is very high, then there is possibility of deeper planar premature entry during propagation. So the heel of the blade should be just above the scleral surface to get the right plane. So heel of the blade should rest on the scleral surface. If the heel of the blade is very low from the beginning, it will result in buttonholing. If the heel of the blade is high during the tunnel, it will result in premature entry. So ideal depth of the corneoscleral tunnel, how to assess means, so we have to see the crescent knife through the sclera. Here 2 mm from the limbus incision is placed and tunneling is done. So in the intracorneal portion we have to go up to 1.5 mm from the limbus. Propagation. Propagation of the tunnel blade is initially forward with swiveling movement. Here depth of the tunnel is judged by the visibility of the blade transsclerally. If it is hardly visible, then plane is too deep. If it is clearly seen, then the tunnel is progressing superficially. Blade should be moderately seen, which is indicative of correct plane. Forward movement of the blade is always done by swiveling or pivoting. So these forward movements are directed from the sclera to the limbus to the cornea. So triplanar. During the movements, one should remember the change in the curvature from less steep sclera to a steeper cornea. Once the limbus is reached, tip of the blade should be directed higher to match the corneal curvature. Once the corneal curvature is matched, then forward swiveling of the blade will give us right plane. Forward propagation causes lamellar separation of the layers. Cutting is done while the blade is withdrawn backward and laterally, that is swiping. When the blade is moved laterally, the contour of the globe has to be taken account. Bevel is used to dissect the sclera and lateralize the extent of the tunnel. So lateral swiping movement should always be done in a way that tilt of the blade is along and equal to the contour of the globe. So inadequate blade tilt while sweeping will cause buttonholing, while excess tilt will cause premature entry. Dimensions of the created scleral tunnel should correspond to the size of the nucleus to be delivered out. Ideally, length of the tunnel is about 3 to 3.5 mm and width of the tunnel at its anterior corneal extent is 7 to 8 mm and 6 to 7 mm at its posterior scleral extent. So tunnel blade is crescent blade. We have to move according to the scleral curvature. So if it is not properly moved, we can get buttonholing. If it is more deeply moved, we can get premature entry. So here tunnel crescent knife is moved according to the scleral curvature. According to the scleral curvature, crescent knife is bended. Keratotomy. Entry into the anterior chamber made with bevel down keratome by using simple dimple down technique. This third plane gives the tunnel a secured and valid effect. In the dimple down technique, keratome tip reaches the anterior extent of the tunnel. This is done by pivoting the blade rather than directly entering the tunnel. In the learning phase, directing the sharp tip into the tunnel can cause inadvertent premature entry into the floor of the tunnel. Once the tip reaches the anterior extent of the tunnel, heel of the keratome is lifted to make entry into the AC as perpendicular as possible. This ensures the creation of third plane. The globe has to be firm before entry, lest it may lead to lamellar entry or Descemet's detachment. This is achieved by filling the AC with viscoelastic substance through the side port. Entry also has to be controlled so that tip does not injure iris. So by pivoting movement, we have to enter into the ending of the corneoscleral tunnel, and by the dimple down technique, we have to enter into the AC. So here keratome is entering into the anterior chamber. This is end of the corneoscleral tunnel. After dimple done, we have to make keratome parallel to the iris. Then we have to cut along. So internal incision. Initial entry should be parallel to the external incision and limbus. If the entry is not parallel to the external incision, the internal incision will run in the wrong direction. If the internal incision extends to the sclera, corneal valve is lost. So this is internal incision entry. So it should be parallel to the external incision. Extension. Once the entry into the AC is achieved, the keratome is kept parallel to the plane of the iris and tunnel extended with the forward cutting movement on the either side, in contrast to backward cutting movement with the crescent blade in case of tunnel. In case of external tunnel. So the extension of internal lip is done from limbus to limbus. Inner lip thus created should be concentric to the tunnel. So alternatively, the inner lip can be made straighter. So the idea is to have adequate corneal floor to maintain the integrity of the sutureless tunnel. So after the entry, keratome has to be kept parallel to the surface of the iris, and by the forward cutting movement we have to cut the sides. Here by the forward cutting movement we are cutting the crescent shape tunnel. Here also we are cutting the sides of the tunnel, and it should be from limbus to limbus. When we see the whole tunnel, once again, this is internal part, corneal part, and this is scleral part. So these are side pockets to provide room for nucleus delivery. Surgical anatomy. So internal incision is more, 7.5 mm, and external incision almost 6.5 mm, and it should be 1.5 mm. Tunnel should be scleral incision should be 1.5 mm from the limbus. In the corneal portion we have to take 1.5 mm. So capsulorhexis, using either cystitome needle or capsulorhexis forceps, a puncture is made in the central anterior capsule. The initial puncture is then directed peripherally either in a clockwise or counterclockwise fashion depending on the surgeon preference. Either the tip of the cystitome or forceps is used to fold over the capsular flap akin to a folded napkin. So next the tear is led in a circular fashion to complete the opening. Control is achieved by grasping about 2 clock hours away from the free flap edge, closest to the leading fold of the capsule. If possible, avoid grasping the fold itself or very close to the leading edge, which could lead to unpredictable tear path. If using a cystitome to complete CCC, use enough downward friction force to tear the flap around. Too much downward force could lead to inadvertent puncture of the underlying capsular cortex, while frequent regrasping of the flap will offer exquisite control. Experienced surgeons find that up to 3 to 4 o'clock hours can be completed before regrasping the flap. So from the central portion, we have to start incising the anterior capsule. Almost 2 mm we have to incise for raising the flap. In the second step, we have to raise the flap. In the third step, we have to move the flap all around. So make sure from the center of Purkinje images, and in the center of the capsule we are starting, and it should be 1/3 of the distance between center and limbus. So from here we have taken 1/3 distance, approximately 2 mm. After that we are raising the flap here. So after raising the flap, so this point and this point, we have to mark the junction between 2/3 and 1/3 junction. So here we will hold the cystitome needle. Another way to hold the cystitome needle in position is, remember a triangle here. Imagine a triangle here and hold the center of the triangle with the cystitome. This is pivot, this is anterior, this is flap 2/3, 1/3 junction.